Hi guys, today we're talking about 1D, demonstrating knowledge of resources. So 1D might not be something that you are getting assessed on or observed on. That's going to be written into your observation because it's going to be already embedded in 1E, designing coherent curriculum. If you have not demonstrated that you have the right resources, it's going to come through in 1E. Okay, so what are we talking about when we're demonstrating that we have the right resources? The curriculum is only going to give you the task that you need for that lesson. Okay, but what's the extra stuff that you need? Does Bobby need a highlighter? Does Mary need a popsicle stick to go line by line, right? Who needs their index cards with all of the vocabulary words for that lesson? The vocabulary words should already be on the board, but maybe you have a student that needs a little extra help with the vocabulary to put together sentences, right? Do you have accountable talk charts? How are kids going to know how to answer you and how to use that academic language, right? So that they are learning and understanding what it is to use academic language in a classroom or in their writing, right? So, or even in their speaking, right? So these are what they are talking about when they're talking about resources. It's the stuff that you have come up with as a teacher with your pedagogical background that you are giving to the kids based on what you're teaching for that specific lesson. So your resources may not look the same every single day, right? We're talking about not only the physical materials, but the kind of scaffolding that you're doing for the lesson, right? So it could be the differentiation that you're doing, the scaffolding that you're doing that is teacher facing, right? So you're doing all of the modifications in your lesson, and that's a resource, right? That's a resource. Changing your lesson to meet the needs of your kids, that's a resource. Now, is it still aligned with the curriculum? Yes, it is. But you are making it so that the kids in front of you understand what you're teaching. Most likely, you have a curriculum that's not made for the kids that are sitting in front of you. And you're like, okay, well, these kids are not on level. Most of my kids are below level, so I don't know how I'm going to teach this because they're not going to know this, right? So that's your job to do with your lesson to figure out how you're going to present and execute that lesson, right? That's a resource, and that's going to come through when you are being observed by administration, when they're thinking about, okay, let's see, what are the resources that this teacher is using? She's using her pedagogical knowledge. She's using resources outside of the curriculum that are still aligned, right? Maybe they're teacher created materials. I can tell you right now that the best materials are the teacher created ones. Only you know your kids. I try to steer teachers away from using things like Teachers Pay Teachers. Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of good stuff. I'm not knocking it at all. It has really great stuff. I used it myself when I was a beginning teacher. But eventually, you start to, make your own things because it's not really fitting, and then you're paying for things that you could really just make yourself. The best materials and resources are ones that you have made for the kids in front of you. And once you have those materials, you're going to be able to use those every single year because you're always going to have a kid that needs those resources, okay? So how are you designing resources? How are you selecting resources? Do you know what resources are even in the curriculum, right? So make sure that you know that curriculum well enough, right? I don't want to say forwards and backwards, even though it should be forwards and backwards, but know it well enough that you know where to find the resources that come with that curriculum, right? Your principal should already tell you where all of those resources are, or whoever's in charge of coaching at your school should be able to be the expert on that curriculum. But don't rely on them, right? Because they're not the ones getting observed. You're getting observed. So sometimes, not always, a curriculum will have like a hidden Easter egg at the back, right? If you dig through, right, if you don't have, like, let's say a coach that comes to your school to talk with you about the curriculum and what's available in it, if you look through it, there may be stuff at the back or online. There might be more resources online for the same curriculum. It's ridiculous. But it won't come in, it has happened where it doesn't come in the book that you have, in the teacher's guide, but it will be online, right? And it'll be on their website. So there may be some hidden Easter eggs resources that you could use that come with the curriculum, right? So what's a good example? I'm thinking about, 1D is demonstrating knowledge of resources, right? So you should be demonstrating that you know what to give those kids and that you've looked through the curriculum and that you have made the materials that align with the curriculum, right? You know what the resources are that the kids need. That's going to come through in your teaching, right? If you are giving, I've seen this where a teacher has a teaching point up, they teach the whole lesson, and then the stuff and the resources that they give the kids and that they assess is completely different from what they taught. That's developing. It's not going to work. It's not clear. It's not aligned. It makes no sense. It's not coherent, right? So that's 1E, right? Designing coherent curriculum. So that's why 1C is already embedded in 1E, and it might not be something that you're observed on, but you better know how to do it. You have to have your resources and the right resources that go along with that teaching point, right? So what are we talking about? If it's math, what are the resources that you need for that specific math lesson, right? So if you're teaching, fractions, what do you need for that lesson on fractions? Don't just go up there and teach that lesson and then give the kids the task and call it a day. You're going to need your manipulatives. You're going to need your charts. Some kids are going to need smaller charts. I would put small charts on every single table, to be honest. Get yourself one of those clear acrylics on the table. If you don't have that, who cares? Print it out. I used to print it out. I didn't have any clear acrylics. I would shrink down like a mini chart that was already up, like a big chart, an anchor chart that I had on the board. And I would shrink it down in the copier, right? Shrink it. And then I would make like 25 copies. And every kid would have their mini chart. Because if you haven't noticed already, not all of the kids look up at the charts, right? Some kids just sit there. They have no idea what to do, and they're not asking anybody for help. Put the chart on their desk and show them how to use the materials. Make sure they have clear exemplars, right? Make sure that they have everything they need to give you the right outcome at the end of that lesson so that you know that you're assessing exactly what you taught, the teaching point, right? So resources. You should know that what you're giving them is aligned with the curriculum, right? It's clear, it makes sense, it's differentiated or scaffolded, right? The differentiated is going to be where you're sort of taking away, right? So you're high, middle, low. But when you're scaffolding, you're adding. So every kid has the same grade level stuff, the same grade level task, but you're adding that little bit of extra to support the task, right? That could be in the form of vocabulary words, that could be in the form of operations, giving them an index cards with the operations, and then they just have to select the one that they need for that day. It could be different examples of different problems. These kids should have whatever subject it is. I just selected math today because that's the first thing that popped into my head. But whatever subject it is, there should be lessons before it that built up to that lesson. That's a resource, right? So if they look at the day before's lesson, that's going to be the lesson that built up to the lesson that you're doing today. Today's lesson is going to be built on tomorrow, right? You shouldn't do one lesson today and then decide that you're going to do a whole different topic tomorrow. It's not, again, coherence, right? It's not going to make sense because your administrator may or may not ask for a unit plan with your lesson, right? They may ask for a curriculum map, right? And that's how they're going to know that you're jumping around all over the place and you don't know what you're doing, right? The kids are not going to get things like that. They have to be able to build on the last thing, right? And you have to know that what you've chosen for that day's lesson is going to be building on kids' previous knowledge, their schema. How do they have previous knowledge? Because you gave it to them, right? That's a resource. Schema is a resource. Resources are not always going to be concrete, right? But your administrator is going to be able to tell how you selected resources and what you're doing based on your pedagogy and based on how you're executing that lesson, right? So know your resources. Look for those Easter eggs in the curriculum. Make your own. Look at the lesson before you teach it. Don't just open that curriculum that day, open that lesson and try to teach it cold. I promise you that's the day that admin's going to walk in and you're going to end up with a developing, right? I've seen it too many times. Don't do it, right? Take a little time, flip through the curriculum, look at the lesson, and build all of your resources out with your curriculum map, right? I prefer a curriculum map to a unit map. And the reason is because the curriculum map gives you, it tells a story, right? So your curriculum map is going to tell your administrator if they should ask for it. But even if they don't ask for it, I promise you this is going to be like your Bible. It's going to be a really wonderful anchor that you create at the beginning of the year. And you're not going to have to ever create that again in your pedagogical life, okay? So it sounds like a lot of work when you're doing a curriculum map, but I promise you all you're doing is tweaking it year after year after year. And it's just going to become like you're going to know what's on there. You're going to know what resources to pull every time you have a new unit, every time you pull out a lesson, which lessons too. Type them up, keep them in your drive. All you're going to do is tweak it for the kids in front of you the following year, right? Especially if you're teaching the same subjects, if you're teaching the same grade. So I promise you that you are going to thank me later because all of this stuff that you're going to create in your first years of teaching, or even if you've decided right now that it's 20 years in and you're like, you know what, this is it. I'm making my stuff, and from now on I'm going to have my stuff done every year, right? I'm just going to be tweaking it. So I'm talking to you. Have that curriculum map so that you know what resources you're using. So every year, or every time you do that same unit, right? Because your units might mix around, you might take some out. You know, it's I guess it's up to your school. Your school might let you decide how you want to arrange your units within the curriculum in the map. So you're going to decide how many days you have in September, and I have templates for all of that. You're going to decide count the days that you have in September because there are a lot of holidays. Don't think that you have 25, 30 days because you don't. You probably have 2 weeks at most in September to teach, right? So you have to think about that, right? What does that unit look like? What are the resources that you're going to put in there for that curriculum to teach those lessons, right? October, how many actual days do you have, right? Probably just a little bit more than 2 weeks, right? There are holidays in there also. So you don't have a lot of time to teach the materials. That's why it's really important that 1D resources, making sure that you know the resources that you're going to choose, that they are a slam dunk, right? They have to be a slam dunk for those units. So once you look at that curriculum, each curriculum has about, I don't know, maybe 15 units. And within each unit is maybe 20 lessons, and you're not even going to get to all of those. So depending on which ones you select to teach, if your school allows you to decide which lessons you're going to teach within that unit and within that curriculum, those are the resources you're going to use. Don't just start willy-nilly. Oh, I know this is science. I know what I'm going to have for these resources. I know what I'm going to do. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself because it's going to come through in your teaching. Administrators know within the first 5 minutes if you're prepared and if you know what you're talking about and if you selected the right resources for that lesson, okay? They're going to know as soon as they walk in. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, maybe less. It's a super quick assessment because they've been doing it for so long, okay? So take the time. Go through the curriculum. Did your school tell you that you can choose which units you want to teach, or did they tell you? Either way, go through those units. Next step. Did your school, did your administration tell you that you can pick which lessons you want to teach within that unit? Unit 1 in the curriculum, right? Those 20 lessons, did they tell you you're only teaching these 15? Look at those resources. If they don't have resources, think about what resources you need to create okay, that you need to print out, if they allow you to print them from online, and not create anything, what do you need to create so that you can be ready when you're ready to teach that lesson, and type it into your curriculum map, right? You're going to have sections in your curriculum map that shows you. So the last section, usually in my template, the last section is resources. So on resources, that's where you're going to type in everything you need. Unit 1, right? Unit 1, September, 15 days, right? I'm going to need X, Y, Z, dot, 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 right? So now you don't have to think about it. It's on paper. You're not going to have to think about this every single year. What do I need for Unit 1? What do I need for Unit 2? You're not going to have to, because you already wrote it in your curriculum map, so you know your resources, right? The only way you're going to know is to read through that curriculum and to look at your kids' data once you have them, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you're doing in the first September. You're doing when you get there. First thing in the beginning of the year, you're learning what your kids need, right? You know that, Mary can't read, and she's a second grade reading level, and you're teaching fourth grade. What resources do you need? Have it ready. You know that Johnny can't add 2 plus 2, and you're already in second grade or third grade, and you're getting ready to go into multiplication. What resources do you need? Have those things ready, because you're gonna have the same kids. If you've been teaching, unless it's your first year and you have no idea, you're gonna have the same kids that you had last year, the same problems, the same issues. So have those resources ready, right? Your curriculum map, once you have that typed up and you have those resources in a little bin in the corner, your times tables, your manipulatives, whatever it is that you need for that unit, that lesson, when you get up to it, it's already going to be ready, because you're thinking with your pedagogical background, right? You're creating the materials that you need, and you already know to think ahead. All right. You're probably in the summertime, all summer you're thinking about September, right? This is what most teachers do. This is what I did. All summer I was thinking about September, and I was really excited in the summer. And then 2 weeks in, it was like, what? Right? It's a lot. It's a lot. So you want to be as prepared as possible before you get there. All right? It's really quick. You could be watching TV and making materials, right? It's quick and easy, because once you do it once, you're not going to have to do it again. If you can laminate things, if your school has a laminator, get those things laminated. Get your charts laminated. Okay? You might have to redo anchor charts based on where they're facing. If you are having your anchor charts facing the sun, facing your windows, they might get faded, and you might have to redo them. I used to like remaking my charts. I thought it was fun. I write terribly with a pen and pencil, but when I have, markers, the Crayola markers are the best ones. Those Crayola are like felt tip markers. Those are the best ones to make your charts. Try to make them, they can be as simple as possible, or they can be as colorful as possible, but they have to be on chart paper. They have to be large enough that the kid all the way at the back can see it, right? Because you're not going to make multiple charts for every corner of the room. That's not happening, right? And it has to make sense. Super clear instructions that go with that unit that you're teaching. If you're up to Unit 5, right? So this is a resource. Anchor charts are a resource, right? We're talking about 1D resources. If you're up to Unit 5, and admin walks in and you have charts up from Unit 1, nope, that's not going to work. How does that help kids? It's telling administration that you don't know what your kids need as a resource, because you have an anchor chart from 3 months ago, right? So don't do it. Once you start a new unit, look around the room. Which charts need to come down? Which charts need to go up, right? Whatever work that they had from the last unit to help them build knowledge onto, that's going to be in their notebooks. Make sure they have notebooks where they can go back, right? That's a resource. They should be able to go back. Oh, I know this. The teacher taught me this. I have this operation written down. I have an example of it. Even though Unit 4's anchor chart is down, they have that work in there. But Unit 5 anchor chart is up because Unit 5 is what you're teaching, right? That's a resources. That's a resource. Especially for your English language learners, your multilingual learners, right? They're going to need something to look at. So make sure that it's current and that it's aligned with what you are actually teaching. Okay. Let's see what else. Have a neat classroom. There's nothing worse than administration walking in and you're getting observed and you're looking for your resources. Have everything neat. Make sure it's labeled. Better yet, let the kids get their own resources if they know what to get, right? If you're able to trust that your kids know how to select the things that they need, have it in an area where the kids could go get it themselves so that they could show some ownership of what they're learning and what they need. That's fantastic, right? Admin loves seeing that. They love seeing kids go get their own resources and that they know what resources they need because you have put out exactly what they need. You know what they need, right? So put that master's degree to work, right? You have a master's degree, you passed, you have all of your education, you know what to do. Don't be afraid to create materials and let the kids use the materials as they see fit. You watch them, you know. You're circulating, you're conferencing, right? What are the resources that they chose? They should have chosen the right ones because you already know what they need, right? So whether it's that you have that one kid handing out the resources, don't start sending everybody up to go get resources. That you're wasting time and it's gonna show up in your observation, right? You don't need 25 kids going up to get papers. Have one kid handing it out, or you have it out already, right? And you can have the kids go get their manipulatives or whatever it is they need, whatever it is they think they need, vocabulary cards, operations cards, right? Sentence starters, sentence frames, right? Accountable talk charts should be up already. That's a resource. So accountable talk, right? They know how to talk to each other when they are discussing the work, right? You don't want to hear any kid judging each other or giving each other really bad feedback. That's actually the wrong thing, right? You want them to have that academic language that pertains to that unit and to that subject, right? So the accountable talk chart should already be hanging up. That's not really something that you're handing out to kids. You could give out like a talking, like a little something that they can hold so that they know when it's their turn to talk, if that's an issue, right? But it's all the resources that you need for that lesson and to make sure that those kids are going to be learning using those resources, right? You don't want to have something from the last subject out, right? I've seen this too. ELA is out when the teacher's teaching math. No. That's a no. Just get rid of it. They have to clear their desk and get ready for learning for the subject and the lesson that is going to be taught right now. Lunchbox is out because lunch is next period. No. Nope. All that needs to be cleared, right? So your timing, your pacing, that's a resource, right? How much time are you giving the kids to work, right? Is it too little? Is it too long, right? So I'm going to go back to the curriculum map. This is going to help you with putting down your resources now so that you're not scrambling in the middle of your lesson or at the beginning of a unit, right? And you're like, what am I going to do? How do you know what resources you need? You're going to look at data, the kids' data. It doesn't matter if it's the first week of school. Look at your incoming kids, right? The last teacher they had has their data, right? That's the stuff that moves with them. So you should already have that. But my dog is like chewing, I don't know what over there. But you should already have your data. But if the teacher didn't give it to you, and that's not a requirement at your school, go back to that teacher, right? Can I have some of the data from these kids from last year, right? If they're test-taking kids, you can look at test scores, right? So that you have an idea of what you're going to need for who, right? You don't need to have specific names. You could just see, okay, I see 5 kids needed this, another 10 kids needed this, these 2 kids needed this. Just have all the resources ready for September, right? Write it down, what you need. If you don't have it, if you're thinking, let me just make the list and create it later or print it out later or make copies later, that's where your curriculum map comes in. You don't want to have post-it notes and little notes for yourself everywhere, and then September comes and you're going crazy. It's not going to help you. I promise you, it's not going to help you. Right? So let everything fall into your curriculum map. Leave it on your drive. Your resources are already listed. You're going to create them. You're going to make them. You're probably only going to tweak them. If you've already made them, next year you're going to tweak them. That's it. Just tweak. Right? You're going to add. You're going to take away. Okay, so that is 1D, all about resources for the Danielson Framework, and I hope this was helpful. I will come back with 1E or 1F.